Oop. Welcome to Top Deck City. My name is Grim, and what I have for you today is the finished product, almost finished product of my Relic Token Legendary Edition Commander deck that I decided to build based off of what token that I got, what Relic token I got. And so I got Bruna, Light of Alabaster, who is traditionally known as a very salt-inducing commander, as are most Azorius commanders, because their basic function in Magic is to slow the game down, tax your opponents, control their board state and their hand, and eventually win a war of attrition. Bruna is a little bit better than most Azorius commanders in that she wants to win fighting. The downside is she wins by cheating auras into play. So Bruna, she is 6 mana, 2 white, 1 blue, and 3 colorless. She is a 5/5 flying angel with vigilance. And when Bruna, Light of Alabaster attacks or blocks, you may attach any number of auras on the battlefield. And you may put onto the battlefield, attached to it, any number of aura cards that could enchant it from your graveyard and or hand. So, one of the strategies here is to just mill yourself, get a bunch of stuff into the graveyard, then swing with Bruna, and, one-shot somebody with commander damage. I'm going to try to do I'm going to try not to do that. I'm still going to play her Voltron style, but instead of me milling myself or drawing my hand, a lot of cards into my hand, I'm going to attempt to just actually cast these things. There will be some shenanigans because I still want to win, but most of the R's that I'm going to cast are either going to come from or probably going to come from my hand because I put a lot of draw in the deck. So anyway, let's get into what's in the deck. So starting off, I got my ramp, and I didn't hold back with this. I'm playing some of my more powerful ramp cards, starting off here with Mana Crypt. I won't be using my actual Mana Crypt. I'll be using this sweet proxy that I have. But yeah, so Mana Crypt. We got a Soul Ring. Let's try to fix that. There we go. Wayfarer's Bauble. Arcane Signet. I mean, these are all pretty much staples. Mind Stone. All these 2-drop ramp. Azorius Signet. New card here, Loyal Warhound. He's the 2-drop 3/1 vigilance. When he enters the battlefield, if an opponent controls more lands than you, search your library for a basic plains card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, and shuffle. I snagged a bunch of these, so I figured I'd use one. Birth of Melitus. It's an enchantment. Search your library for a basic plains card, reveal, put it into your hand, shuffle your library. Technically not a ramp card, but I'm counting it as ramp. Because it does put a land in the hand. Keeper of the Accord. Being of each opponent's end step, if that player controls more creatures than you, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token, and at the beginning of each opponent's end step, if that player controls more lands than you, you may search your library for a basic plains card and put it onto the battlefield, tap, and shuffle your library. So I plan to be able to use both of his abilities, because it is kind of a Voltron-y deck, so it's pretty much just going to be him and Bruna out there most of the time. So I should be able to get the token and the land. Burn to start. And Solemn Simulacrum. It's also a card draw card. And then here we got some mana reducers. Danitha, Capuchan, Paragon. She has the first strike, Vigilance, Lifelink, but aura and equipment spells cost 1 less, which is pretty sweet. The Starnhelm Courser, artifacts, enchantment spells I cast cost 1 less. And Transcendent Envoy, aura spells I cast cost 1 less. So that is my ramp. Moving on to the next category I have here is my card draw. Where did it go? Oh, I guess it's here. No, it's here. There we go. Card draw. So some of these are pretty much staples for enchantment decks. Mesa Enchantress, whenever you cast an enchantment spell, draw a card. Core Spirit Dancer. Gets +2/+2 for each R attached to it, and whenever you cast an R spell, you may draw a card. Makes sense. Arcana Style, 4 mana flying. When you enter the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact or enchantment card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on your bottom of your library in any order. Heliod's Pilgrim. When Heliod's Pilgrim enters the battlefield, search your library for an R card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. 3 Dreams. Search your library for up to 3 R cards with different names. Reveal them and put them into your hand, and shuffle your library. Wish that was instant. R-Touched Mage. 6 mana. When R-Touched Mage comes into play, enters the battlefield, search your library for an R card that could enchant it. If R-Touched Mage is still in play, attach the R to it. Otherwise, reveal the R card and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So either way, it gets you either a card to hand or a card attached to him. Academy Rector. This is an old school card. 4 mana, 1/2. When Academy Rector is put into the graveyard from play, you may remove Academy Rector from the game. If you do, search your library for an enchantment card and put it into play onto the battlefield. Then shuffle your library. Pretty good deal. Idyllic Tutor. Search your library for an enchantment card, reveal it, put it in your hand, shuffle your library. This came in one of these like bonus packs because it has this little symbol on it. It's a pretty good deal. This guy's a new guy from Kaldheim, and I think he's really underused, but he's really good. Runeforged Champion. 3 mana for a 2/3. When Runeforged Champion enters the battlefield, you may search your library and or graveyard for a rune card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. If you search your library this way, shuffle it, and you may pay 1 rather than pay the mana cost for rune spells. So, real quick, why he's in the deck is because the rune spells are a pretty good deal. They are right here. So the two that are in the deck are obviously the white and the blue one. I wish they would have made a colorless one. That would have been a pretty cool addition, so you could at least get 3 uses out of him. And so Rune of Sustenance and Rune of Flight. Rune of Sustenance enters a battlefield, draw a card, so it replaces itself. As long as Enchanted Permanent is a creature, it has lifelink. As long as Enchanted Permanent is an equipment, it has equipped creature has lifelink. And Rune of Flight is the same deal, but for flying. Here's what makes all these cards so good. Sun Titan. Sun Titan gets all 3 of these things back. So, if you cast Sun Titan, you get the Runeforged Champion to the battlefield. He comes to the battlefield and then gets the thing that he might be in the graveyard back for you as well. And then when the Sun Titan attacks, you go get the other one if it's in the graveyard. So, pretty excited about using him in this deck. Getting that cheap card draw plus the enchantment bonus. So Arcana of Sun's Grace. Yeah, he cares about enchantments. So he's actually in the wrong pile. But yeah, the purpose of him is that he cares about enchantments. So whenever I cast an enchantment spell, I get a 2/2 white Pegasus. Sovereigns of Lost Alara, 6 mana for a 4/5 Exalted. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, you may search your library for an R card that could enchant it, that creature, and put it on that creature, attached to it, the creature, and then shuffle your library. So, yep, pretty good fetch. And this guy is also in the wrong pile, but yeah, he cares about enchantments as well. Whenever enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, create a 2/2 white cat creature token. If that enchantment is an aura, you may attach it to the token. So, a couple of really good staples there for enchantment decks. This pile here, this was the actual draw pile. So that was like my cares about enchantment pile. Here we go. We got Dream Trawler, flying lifelink. Whenever you draw a card, he gets +1/+0 until end of turn. And whenever he attacks, you draw a card, and then you can discard a card to give it hexproof and tap it. Sphinx's Revelation, gain X life, draw X cards. Ever-Watching Threshold, an enchantment. Whenever an opponent attacks you or a planeswalker you control with one or more creatures, draw a card. Curiosity. Whenever an enchanted creature deals damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. Curious Obsession. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. At the beginning of your end step, if you didn't attack with a creature this turn, sacrifice Curious Obsession. And Staggering Insight, 2 mana, enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has lifelink, and whenever the creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. And then Dragon Lord Ojutai, 5 mana for a 5/4 flying. Dragon Lord Ojutai has hexproof as long as it's untapped, and whenever Dragon Lord Ojutai deals combat damage to a player, Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and the rest in the bottom of your library in any order. Not exactly card draw, but pretty much card draw. Next I have here is my protection for protecting my commander. This is like an aspect of commander that I don't see a lot of people really doing when I watch other people's like deck techs and stuff. But yeah, I hate having to recast my commander, especially if it's like above 4 mana. Bruna's 6, so I got to make sure she stays on the battlefield. So Umber Mystic, 3 mana. Auras attached to permanents you control have totem armor. So that really just protects the auras, but you get the idea. Cosmic Intervention. It's the poor man's Teferi's protection. It's a 4-mana instant. If a permanent you control would be put into the graveyard from the battlefield this turn, exile instead and return to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So I'm pretty sure this would work with protecting your enchantments as well. So you could pick any number. So it's a pretty good deal. Swiftfoot Boots. You can get the old Hexproof and Haste. Indestructibility. It's pretty self-explanatory. Unquestioned Authority. Has protection from creatures, and it has a little cantrip attached to it, which is nice. Flicker Form. 2 mana enchant creature. Pay 4. Remove enchanted creature and all auras attached to it from the game. At the end of the turn, return that card to play under its owner's control. If you do, return those auras to play under their owner's control, enchanting that creature. So it gets around things like Shroud. Abduction. So here's one that I thought would be fun to play. I don't see this card a lot in Commander. It's 4 mana. It says when Abduction enters the battlefield, untap enchanted creature. Gain control of enchanted creature. And if enchanted creature is put into any graveyard, put that creature into play under its owner's control. So there's 2 ways to look at this. Number 1, I can steal my commander back if he gets stolen. Number 2, I can steal a threat on the board that's a problem. It's not a permanent solution because if the creature does die, it's going to come back to the battlefield. And number 3, if this is in my graveyard and I trigger it, or in my hand, I trigger it with Bruna, and it enchants Bruna, when Bruna dies, she'll come right back into play because Abduction will protect her. So I thought it'd be a fun card to mess with. Curator's Ward, 3 mana, enchant permanent. Enchant permanent has hexproof, and when enchant permanent leaves the battlefield, if it was historic, draw 2 cards. So I thought this was pretty good protection spell, and it's an aura, and it gets me card draw if she gets board wiped. So next I have here is removal. A lot of more staples here. No Cyclonic Rift in this deck. I decided to, after this weekend's games, where I got my opponents into a Cyclonic Rift lock, I decided that was not fun, so I'm not putting it in this deck. So, Return to Dust, exile artifacts or enchantments, Path to Exile, Tragic Arrogance. I love this card. For each player, choose from among the permanents that player controls an artifact, creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker that each player sacrifices all the other non-land permanents he or she controls. Winds of Wrath. Destroy all creatures that aren't enchanted. They can't be regenerated. Aura of Silence. Artifact and enchantment spells your opponent's cast cost 2 more to cast. And sacrifice Aura of Silence. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Ashiok's Erasure. This is my counter spell I threw in here. It's 4 mana enchantment with flash. As it enters the battlefield, exile target spell. Your opponents can't cast spells with the same name as the exiled card. When Ashiok's Erasure leaves the battlefield, return the exiled card to its owner's hand. And this guy, Soltari Visionary, he's a 3 mana 2/2 shadow, and when he damages a player, destroy target enchantment that player controls. So hopefully he won't get stolen from me. Next I have just the pump spells and enchantments and artifacts. Brilliant Halo. Enchant creature gets +1/+2, and when it's put to the graveyard, I put it back into my hand, so you get some multiple uses out of that. Helm of the Gods. A quick creature gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control. Righteous Authority. 5 mana enchant creature. When enchant creature gets +1/+1 for each card in its controller's hand, and at the beginning of the draw step of enchanted creature's controller, that player draws an additional card. So it's kind of cool. It's like a pump and card draw. Aqueous Form. 1 mana aura. Enchanted creature can't be blocked, and whenever enchanted creature attacks, I scry 1. Battle Mastery. Enchant creature has double strike. And all that glitters. Enchant creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment I control. All that glitters could also be considered a game ender if the situation is right. Which brings me on to my next category, how I win the game. So replenish will do the trick. If I have enough stuff in the graveyard, just bring all my enchantments back and swing for the fences. Corrupted Conscience, enchant creature. You control enchant creature, so it's a theft card, and it also gives the creature infect. So that could be pretty lethal on Bruna, just getting her up to 10 power. She's already at a 5, so it shouldn't be too difficult, especially with all the glitters. And then Blighted Agent as an alternate win con with his infect and unblockable. So if I get a bunch of, once again, all that glitters or Eldrazi Conscription or something on him, that's a game ender. Speaking of Eldrazi Conscription, I own 3 copies of Eldrazi Conscription. I could not find it. I spent all day looking for it, but going through 185 decks was not fun. So I went through all the ones that it would make sense for it to be in, like my Siona deck, since it's an enchantment deck, and also has an Academy Rector in it. So I figured it would definitely be in there, but it wasn't. I went through all my other Azorius and Esper decks. I don't know where they are, and it's pretty upsetting. So if I don't find it by the end of the day, I'm just going to order another one. So that should also be in this deck, for obvious reasons. And then we have here some recursion. Got the Sun Titan and Marshal's Anthem with the multi-kicker. When it enters the battlefield, return up to X target creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the number of times Marshal's Anthem is kicked. I think this card's not great, but it's an enchantment, so I can fetch it, and being able to get some of, if it gets to the point where I just can't recast Bruna, kicking Marshal's Anthem for 6 is the same as paying her casting cost. So just, getting her back onto the battlefield, I think is a good deal. And the last 2 cards I have that aren't lands, or 3 cards I should say, are some shenanigan cards, as I like to call them. Clever Impersonator enters the battlefield with a copy of any non-land permanent on the battlefield, so yeah, I can abuse that with some of the enchantments, like all that glitters, and can double up on that. Same thing with Spark Double. I can double up on some of the creatures that do cool things like Sun Titan and whatnot. And then Mirror Maid, which is you may have Mirror Maid enter the battlefield as a copy of any artifact or enchantment on the battlefield. So having Mirror Maid enter the battlefield as a copy of Eldrazi Conscription or all that glitters can really speed the winning process up. As far as lands go, I've got a couple of neat ones here. Turns out I have a lot of Azorius lands just sitting around. Don't build a lot of Azorius decks. I do build a lot of Esper decks, but not Azorius. Esper is a lot more fun in my opinion. So this new one here, Razortide Bridge. It's an indestructible land. It's pretty cool. Azorius Chancellery. Yep. Glacial Floodplain. Nimbus Maze. Thought that was a cool card. It's a kind of a dual land that enters untapped. Temple of Enlightenment. Adakar Waste. Yep. Command Tower. Hengegate Pathway. That's the blue or white land. Gates of Istfell. Enters battlefield, taps for white, and you can pay 5 and sack it and gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. Now all these sack lands I like because I can get them back with Sun Titan. Seclude Steep, little cycling guy. Onto Inversion. I consider it a land. It's the modal. You never know when you need a board wipe to wipe everything though, so I figured I'd just include that. Idyllic Grange. Good card to fetch when you can fetch just a plains, because it counts as a plains. Castle Vantress, always useful. Fabled Pathway with a cool foil. I think this was like a giveaway for like buying a box or something. Tyrite Sanctum. This card's been growing on me. It's tap to add 1 colorless. Target legendary creature becomes a god in addition to its other types. Put a +1/+1 counter on it, and then pay 4 and sack it, and put an indestructible counter on target god. So I thought that would be kind of fun to protect Bruna should the situation arise. Myriad Landscape, one of my personal stables, Reliquary Tower, and of course Hall of Heliod's Generosity. I think this is like a must-have in any enchantment deck. Any enchantment deck that's white, I should say. Tap to add 1, and pay 3 or 2. Put target enchantment card from your graveyard on top of your library. Now, 2 enchantments I didn't include just because I didn't feel like moving them from other decks. I only have 2 copies of each, or both Heliod's, and both Thassa's. I want to try and win without them. I think this deck has a lot of potential to do that. I think it has... I got 14 ramp cards in here, and I think I have like 16 draw spells in here. So I feel like I can get to the auras that I want as fast as possible. I have 22 auras in the deck, which seems like a good amount. And most of them are cantrips, like they ETB and they draw me a card, or I put them on my creature, and then when that creature attacks and deals damage, I get to draw a card. So I feel like I'll constantly be replacing all the spells that I play. Don't have a lot of like real reliable removal or counter spells or anything like that. I'm trying to just do the thing, get Bruna in play, get her pumped up, and then swing for the fences. And if I get shut down, I get shut down. But I think it'll be a fun deck to play, and I don't think it's going to be as salt-inducing as other Bruna decks that I've seen. So, anyway, thanks for watching, and talk to you soon.